This will be a straight to the point tutorial on how to emulate the Sony PlayStation 2 so you can enjoy PS2 games on your Mac, be it the Apple Silicon or Intel Macs. There's a little bit of a difference and we'll cover it in this video. Also, you can check the description of this video because there is a written version of this guide if you prefer that. Let's begin setting up the PlayStation 2 emulators on the Mac. If you're using an Intel Mac, you will want PCSX2, and the Apple Silicon Mac users will want AetherSX2, which is the same emulator but optimized for mobile chipsets and the Apple Silicon. This will not run under an Intel Mac, whereas PCSX2 will run on a Apple Silicon Mac, but at greatly reduced performances. Remember, the links are in the description of this video. We do not want to download the stable releases, we want to download the nightly builds. These are the ones that support the Metal Graphics API. So just scroll down here to nightly builds, we're going to download the macOS version, and we're going to do the same for AetherSX2. Just go down here, download the most recent. Okay, timeout. I don't think I made this 100% clear, but don't download both emulators. Only download the one that pertains to your computer's architecture. That is AetherSX2 for Apple Silicon users, and for Intel Mac users, that's PCSX2. You can always, again, check the architecture of your Mac if you go to About This Mac, and it'll tell you what kind of CPU your computer is using. Let's just decompress these. I'm going to put both of these on my desktop because for this demo, that's where I'm going to be using all the files. You can place these in your applications folder. Okay, on my desktop, I have these two emulators, and if you're running the latest macOS, you'll notice this wonderful error. macOS cannot verify this app is free from malware. This is because it's unsigned code. These are nightly builds. These are more like development builds. We can get around this in both of these emulators. If we just happen to do this little nifty trick, right click, open. Now we're presented with the same messaging with a little addendum, and we can open these. So let's do that for both emulators. No, I'm using a Apple Silicon Mac. This wouldn't be possible under an Intel Mac. So these emulators are basically the same. If you look at the UIs, they're going to be almost exactly the same. There's going to be a few little tweaks that each one has between each other. So first, let's start with configuring the BIOS. I already have BIOS downloaded. You can find this on the internet pretty easily just by searching PS2 BIOS and something like archive.org. If we were to click on this link, you could probably download it here. I'm not recommending you do that. If you want to keep this 100% legal, you can look up instructions on how to dump the BIOS off your PlayStation 2 on the internet. There's plenty of places that tell you how to do this to keep it 100% legal. I already have the BIOS on my desktop, so let's configure the emulator. We're going to go to Preferences, and then under the BIOS, we're just going to browse. It's on my desktop. It's going to ask me for permissions to use my desktop, which is fine, and I have this folder of the BIOS. If it has the proper BIOS, it'll show up in here. The same process applies to AetherSX2. Preferences, BIOS, Browse, Desktop, Permissions, select Folder, and of course it's appearing and it looks the same. Now we're ready to add games. I already have games on my Mac, but you can rip these using utilities to create ISOs, or you can actually even use the discs themselves if you have a DVD drive. Go to our Preferences again, and we're now going to go to Games List, and we can add the games. It's going to ask me again for the permissions for some reason. I have the games folder, add that. And you can scan recursively. I don't have folders within folders, but you can organize the games as you see fit on your computer. Games are large as they are DVDs, so these range from 4 gigs to 1.7. You'll notice that these have this compatibility tab, and generally most games are 4 stars. That means they'll run almost perfectly. Overall, these are 100% playable. You can save and usually complete the game without any real major issues. We're almost ready to play one of these games. The last step we're going to really engage with setup beyond graphics is we're first going to do our controllers. I already have a PlayStation 4 controller plugged into my Mac using USB. I really recommend getting a controller like this because of auto mapping. major controllers, I believe the Xbox controllers are like this too, have automatic binding. So all it takes is, from here I have it set up that my controller connected to my PlayStation virtually is a DualShock 2, and I just can use the PlayStation 4 controller auto mapping. Same process in this emulator over here, Aether SX2 controllers, and do the same thing, automatic bind it. So now we have our controller set up. We could start playing games, but let's tweak the graphics before we get too far into this. So I'm going to go in the settings, graphics. You'll notice that we have a renderer. This is the big thing that we were after in the nightly build. This one now has metal, which is going to be the best performance. You do lose the ability to do a few of the hardware fixes and tweaks in these two menus. If I go to preferences over here and I do the same thing, we'll notice metal, I already have it pre-selected, and these actually gray out in this emulator. So that's a nice little UI thing that they corrected. Under rendering, we'll notice that right now the internal resolution is native. Well, this is where most of the magic happens because we can have our games run at much higher. 3D games will render all the polygons at the resolution specified, therefore resulting in much sharper and clearer graphics. Let's go with 1080p. For testing, you can also do other things like anisotropic filtering, I hope I said that right, which allows you to, and as it tells you in this nice little description in the bottom, reduces texture aliasing at extreme angles. This will be a GPU hit, but you can tweak this as needed and improve the visual fidelity of your games. So we're just going to use 1080p because that's pretty safe. We know it'll probably perform pretty well under M1 Max. I'm going to use this emulator to play the game because I'm on Apple Silicon. Let's just set that 1080p. The game I'm going to play, really briefly, is SSX3. I've already started playing this game, and this is a good place where I can demonstrate freeze states. Freeze states are a way to freeze an application and have it load exactly the same memory state it was last left in. This means you can save a game literally at any point and resume where you left off. When I load the state, there's no load time. Isn't that nice? And then also, I'm in the middle of a race in this game where I just recently crashed. And so if I were to resume my game and I'm just like doing poorly, as you can see here, I'm crashing on purpose, I can always just be like, no, I don't want to save this state because I did badly. I can just say, yes, I want to quit, double click the game again, load the state, and now I'm back at the menu screen. I can resume, try and do better this time, and now I can resume my game and continue playing and maybe do better this time. So that's a nice feature of emulation. Also, as you notice, the game's running in 1080p. This game would look like, if I quit this game for a second, go to preferences, we can drop this resolution, and this is what the PlayStation 2 looked like for most people for most of its duration. It's really blurry and pixelated. See that? That is not very beautiful, but when we jump back, can always just change our graphics settings. And here I am now running at 1440p, and it's nice and sharp. Looks a lot better, and you can even do hacks like dump the textures in these emulators. Let's just look at that as just kind of a fun aside. You can actually go through and download texture packs for games. If you go to one of these emulators, I accidentally quit the other one, so let's just look here. You can see that in our texture replacement option, we have a folder on my computer, and this is a place where the textures can be dumped and loaded from. It'll create a dump folder and a separate folder for loading from. You can use programs to use ML upscaling to make the textures much better looking just without doing much work, or bring them into popular graphics programs and touch them up by hand yourself. There are some communities that do this online, and you can download these texture packs and make your games look a lot better. This is much more popular in the Dolphin emulation scene, because I've seen that there is a SSX3, the game I was just playing, with higher resolution textures. You can also boot into things like the BIOS, which is where you can access your memory card. Ooh, this is not in English. So here's my memory card. I don't have anything saved on it. I can also format unformatted memory cards, and I'll format it. Now I can also go into my preferences. I'll just kind of close out here. Exit, yes. If we go to preferences or settings, we can look at our memory cards. Let's just go to memory cards. You can see our 2 virtual memory cards that we saw in the BIOS. These 2 little guys, you can create more. You can even create 64 megs. There's some other options that are less compatible. You don't really probably want to use those, but for some people, if they're saving a ton of games, they might need more than 64 megabytes. Close that. You can also eject the memory cards. You can download people's memory cards with save states for popular games, which is kind of nice if you want to have everything unlocked and just enjoy a game. Close out there. And that pretty much covers the basics. You can poke around. There's quite a bit of stuff in these emulation settings. You can force 16:9 perspective or closer to it. It'll stretch the graphics and look kind of bad. I personally don't like it. The aspect ratio under display, 16:9. If I were to launch the SSX game, again, we can look at that. It looks okay on this memory screen, but if you notice, my characters are now stretched. It's just what it is because the games were designed by 4x3 TVs. I believe, and I might be mistaken on this, a few games do support 16:9. And that covers PlayStation 2 emulation for the Mac. If you're interested in recreating other retro tech using your Mac, I've made a guide on how to emulate the Microsoft Xbox using XEMU. Also made videos on QEMU on how to emulate macOS 9.2 with sound. That's pretty great because you're not just limited to games on that. And also, if you're interested in more gaming, I've made one on using OpenEMU to use it to emulate MAME, which is arcade games. So thanks for watching.